Hello there folks, this is Ferengi on board again. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss different things about introspection, dream interpretation, spirituality, and well, any requests or most requests that people have and they cannot provide themselves an answer. And well, I'm more than willing in certain situations to provide my own point and of course share some of the wisdom I have acquired, although I kind of tempt to become a bit more introspective than most people would accept. Alright, now the question that I found today on Quora is, why is it important to have a justice system? Now, to discuss about a justice system, I really don't want to dive into a lot of technicalities and, concepts, because as a person I have conceptual aversions and I consider myself introspective enough to know what I'm speaking about when it comes to most people. And of course, the point of a judicial system is it does nothing else than teach certain people how to be puppies in the name of someone else's interests. And then, after that, the point is those will actually reinforce a system that simply doesn't necessarily take them into account. Why is that? Well, I have seen here an answer, and I'm not interested in pointing it out as an answer that wouldn't be correct, but I want to simply present my own view on this. So the justice system is not the backbone of any civilized society. Now, if you want to take into account this concept called civilized, the civilized concept is related to what we call nowadays as a society that has certain principles and certain ideas. But let's not forget that in the medieval era, okay, the Christians would call themselves a civilized society, but wherever Christianity went, in many situations, not all, they kind of obliterated most of the populations and they spread their own Christianity by enforcement of the sword. Okay, that is by no means something I would call civilized. Now, of course, judging ideas and aspects from the past is not something good, because people in the past have had their own experiences through life and through consciousness, and the point is very simple. You cannot judge people with lower awareness because they are our ancestors, and if they haven't existed, we wouldn't have had this level of awareness that we can enjoy now. And at least I am very proud of mine, and I am also very graceful for mine and grateful, because I have seen a lot of things, well, at least for my age, and I have experienced several things also. Now, civilized is something that can be easily interpretable, and the way I see things beyond the simple physicality and the simple aspect of meaning, and I have a few videos on meaning and why it is a self-destruction button. Also, Tails One has a nice video on the meaning of meaning, and well, why again it is a self-destruction button. Civilized is nothing else than a concept that most people will use in order to enforce a certain opinion on you. Ever since you are born, you are taught and programmed to believe certain rules and laws and to believe that those are important, but if you don't know the history of law, and specifically the more modern one, it originated from the United States when, there were groups of people that would volunteer to protect different convoys, okay? And later on, these people were united into a, let's say, group whose purpose and role was to protect those convoys and different transports, and later on they became the so-called law enforcement. Basically, there were people who were given the power to, protect the so-called society, but just like in America, as in nowadays society is just a conglomerate of superpowers that simply impose their points of view on literally everyone else. This civilized, so-called civilized society is just a sick society, and as the quote says, there is no matter of health in aligning yourself towards a perfectly sick society, which our society nowadays is. If you're actually viewing this video and reviewing my answer, I would definitely not mind your opinions on this, but I simply cannot speak about this present day society as a civilized one, especially when there are so many illusions like social justice and Black Lives Matter. Just tell me one moment in any society's life, okay, in which human lives actually matter or mattered for the past, okay? Society doesn't give a damn about you, and society is just a shadow of your lack of authority. You as a person, as an individual, have been taught by your parents, by your loved ones, by whatever source possible of, information, whatever you want to call it. You have been taught to simply become complacent, because that's the point of having a law. Okay, yes, I know, it always comes, there's always these set of adorable lies, okay, that if you don't have enough awareness, you'll simply fall for. And not having enough awareness is very easy in this world, because no one teaches you to become so. But, well, to speak a bit about myself, I'm a Heyoka, I'm, well, several other things, a crystal child, and all I can say is that my intuition and my communication with the universe are quite broad. And of course I accept any kind of criticism, but usually what I present is things that represent my own truths and my own points of view. And as I present these ideas in each and every video of mine, do feel free to actually take into account what I say, with a grain of salt, because I am here to present my own points of view and not impose them on others, okay? When you have a society that imposes rules upon others, you simply do not understand one thing. Those rules are meant to serve some people, not you as a society, okay? Because if you do an injustice, you're gonna be punished severely. But there are so many people up there that do so many injustices, especially towards their own countries. Some are like, multi-level traitors of your country. Like, for example, in my country, for a long while, our prime minister was exactly the the chief person of one of the most, if not the most brutal communist prison in my country, okay? And that person actually ended up as our prime minister. So don't tell me that we live in perfectly civilized societies. If it is perfectly civilized for you and your level of ignorance, well, that is your problem, not mine. But the point is, now, don't take this as a kind of attack, because I'm not judging and I'm not attacking anyone. It's not my point. I'm here to experience life and to understand the intricacies that it comes with, not to mingle in ideas like, concepts that are irrelevant, okay? You will always be taught things in reverse, because the truth can never be taught. If you wish to teach other people the truth, that doesn't make you anything else than a little tyrant, because that means imposing your ideas upon others. And the only reason that you would impose ideas on others is because you have your own traumas in your life that you haven't been capable of going over, and you also have your own ideas, okay, that go beyond the well-being of other people and just resume themselves only to yourself. Because our society stinks of narcissism and sociopathy, which are the results of traumas, which are the result of parents who have never been taught how to raise their own children, and of course in turn they haven't been raised the proper way. And as I've said in my previous video, usually when you speak to people, you generally address to their own traumas. You don't address to the person themselves, you address people to their traumas and to their misfulfilled parts. That is why you have so many people who always cry, always moan, and literally so much negativity all around. And don't tell me this is a civilized society, okay? A civilized society is a society more like a, let's call, or what I would call, a gestalt consciousness, okay? A consciousness in which individuals are united together, and each and every one of those knows exactly their purpose, okay? Of course, I know, you have been programmed to believe or to call me a dreamer or whatever, but you see, it lies in your power to help create such a society, okay? Because such a society will always exist as a result of your own ignorance. Now, in this world, there are two main spheres, okay? There is education and there is ignorance, okay? Education comes from Latin, and in Latin, educari or educario, or I don't know exactly, the word is slipping from my mind for now. It means to bring out, and specifically to bring out of ignorance. But you see, especially in Europe, the population has been kept in ignorance through religion, because religion has always been actually nothing else than a shadow of ours. Okay, as a person, if you seek control in whatever way or shape in your own life, okay, the only reason why you seek control is because you don't have it. Okay, the way our mentality, our mind works, it always focuses on the lacks. And let's not get into the fact that lacks usually invite all sorts of spiritual parasites, and I have a few videos on that as well. But the point is, let's stick specifically to the mental and psychological aspect. Okay, so many people are traumatized by their parents through different misdeeds and, you know, all sorts of hideous acts, okay, and abuses, which in a way have a spiritual importance, because that's how people become capable of understanding the different things and acquiring a certain level of wisdom in each of their lives. And well, as I said, the justice system is nothing else than a way of control. And again, the only reason why you need control is because you don't have it. Of course, you will be sold all these beautiful lies that we are savage barbarians, okay, but let's not forget one thing, okay? The Norse people, for example, were called barbarians, okay, but they would wash much more than the typical Christian who was kept in ignorance and fear. And well, let's not get into why the Norse people weren't afraid, okay, because fear is not something necessarily important. It is only important because it's just a problem reaction solution, okay? The justice system is there to represent a shadow of our own race, okay? So long as we live in ignorance, we will be having all these people that you keep blaming, or most people do. You know, it's always the government's problem, it's always that specific party's problem, it's always your parents or your, you know, it's always the society's problem, right? There are so many things happening, and people, most of them will just, you know, say that, oh, it's just someone's fault, the problem is solved, voila, okay? So you have no right to tell me that we live in a civilized society, okay? Just because you live in a dream society, okay? And ever wondered why it is called an American dream? Well, it's called the American dream because it is not real. That is a very fun pun that I always intended to make, okay? And the justice system is made out of people just like you, okay? The only difference is that they followed some courses on law, okay, yes, I won't doubt that, but let's not forget that the law was created by some people to rule other people, okay? And basically, those people are nothing else than you. They are people who are born from a mother, and they've had their own traumas, and they are in positions where can decide the fate of other people, but unfortunately, the traumas they have been through will most likely dictate that, because the more traumas you have in your life, that's not important. But the more traumas you weren't capable of curing, well, that's important, because all of those will actually have an impact upon your capacity to dictate things. And in so many countries there is so much corruption, and well, corruption is literally everywhere in the world. Don't ever speak to me about civilized worlds, okay? This world is very sick, and spiritually speaking, the coronavirus was important as a global reset button, because things have kind of become to a standpoint, okay? If that global reset button wouldn't have been pushed, we most likely would have gone to some kind of extinction, okay? Think about, for example, the United States. I really feel somewhat bad for their society, because there is so much hatred within there. There is so much divide within those people, and that clearly shows that that society is not necessarily civilized. And I'm not talking about the people themselves, I'm just talking about the beliefs that are there. And, you know, just like in, I don't know if many other countries, but you know, there is a lot of hatred in there. White people hate white people, black people hate themselves, hating between themselves, white people hate black, black people hate white, and now with all these things going on around, and you know, Black Lives Matter, people simply make so much of a mistake. They do not realize that the purpose of society is to rule people through the different levels of existence and to help in the awakening of certain people. Now, if you have been watching my previous videos, I talk about two types of people, namely the ones who are still stuck in the tutorial, and I call these the NPCs because life is nothing else than a video game, and there are the players, the ones who are undergoing their own awareness, improvement, and their own awakening. And these people are capable more and more of seeing beyond the illusions of society and the importance of justice systems. Because the point is, the more authentic you become to yourself and you surround yourself with more authentic people, this number will keep improving. And the more attention you actually put on the idea of education, you will see that hatred and the need for a justice system actually fades, because when you have people who always do the right things and who do the better things without being programmed to act in a certain way, you will see that society will become much better and much better. Now, the point, of course, is sure, there will always be people who will do misdeeds, because everything has to have bad apples as well, and consciousness will experience itself through literally everything. The whole entire existence and this whole universe is nothing else than one energy, okay? This one energy is what we actually call life. And this life creates temporary aspects of itself, okay? Temporary replicas of itself by bending the so-called dimension that we know as time. And once that bending occurs, a temporary existence is created. Well, actually, the coding that allows that is made, and a facet of this life, which I call a facet of consciousness, well, people call it a soul, but I don't believe in souls because souls are something much too primitive and simple. I believe in a facet of consciousness, which is a concept I created, of course, but it comes with its own sense of complexity and depth, okay? The point is that life will manifest itself through literally each and every piece possible, okay? There will always be facets of consciousness that will come in experience. Many people simply get stuck in the idea of identity, and, well, identity is nothing else than a mask. It is nothing else than a persona, okay? And in Latin, again, persona is nothing else than a character. Persona is what was called by the actors the personage or the character they would have to embody. So, you know, the actors would have to put a mask on themselves so that they would act as that specific character. And that mask was called a persona. Ever wonder now why we're actually wearing masks? Why do we actually need to wear masks because of coronavirus? There is nothing popping into your mind? Well, why do we actually need to wear masks? People have been wearing masks ever since we know ourselves as a race, most likely. So just putting one extra mask on your face is not going to protect other people from the monster that you were taught to become, and most likely each of us are little monsters, because that's what society does. It breeds monsters, and usually narcissists and sociopaths, and so therefore most of these people will simply cling to important key roles in society, because most of narcissists especially live based on fear, and they know, instinctively speaking, that society will always care for the higher positioned individuals, okay? So don't tell me that this is a civilized society. This is just a society that's doing nothing else than living at the lowest vibration possible, which is that of survival. When you have people who live only at that level, don't speak to me about the idea of being civilized, because being civilized means getting to know more than who and what you are, knowing the ideas that are needed beyond you. Okay, when you have a society of people who are grateful for everything that happens to them, and I'm not saying about each and every one, because that's not gonna work, but when you have a society of a lot of people, a significant amount of the society be people who are, you know, benevolent, just like this society is actually going towards, because the old job system is falling to pieces, okay? And the judicial system will also suffer great changes, because it will no longer serve the new society that is being forged in this age of Aquarius, which is the so-called age of the real truth. Of course, it will be an aspect somewhat closer to the truth, because the truth can never be taught. It has to be realized. And for that, people will always need their own level of awareness, which, well, is only achieved by becoming more and more introspective. So the justice system, as I see, is nothing else than mostly a farce. You'll be taught ever since you are young that people are brutes and people are bad. Guess what? religion has been, and specifically Christianity has been teaching you that we as humans have always been bad, have always been insignificant in this eye of a white bearded fuck that stays somewhere up there and hasn't got to do anything else than simply watch people and judge them harshly after they die. Doesn't this sound something like what was it called, like, oh yes, Big Brother? I mean, it's just different occult ways, okay, that are inflicted upon people throughout generations and generations so as to make them adapted and more complacent towards accepting certain things. Like, when cameras were put, most of the people were like, oh, okay, why not? It is for our better good. But, what is the good? Like, if an accident happens, okay, and you are the one who's right and the other person did wrong to you, and there is a security camera that actually filmed that, and you're going to go to the justice system, what does the justice system say? Well, you know what, that is footage, but you cannot use that in the judicial system because the law no longer accepts such recordings to be used. At least in some countries, and in my countries you cannot use such footage as evidence because why the fuck do we even have security cameras? Oh yes, they are used against you so that if you break the law a bit you will be punished. But if you want to use that evidence in a trial, guess what? You're not allowed because the justice does not allow you to. But guess what? At the same time, justice can actually use that footage against you. Because who the fuck are these people? Okay? Who gave these people the permission to be who they are and what they are? Like, we have a lot of police folks, and I'm not arguing against those. Okay, they have their own job, they have their own role to accomplish towards society, and of course not all of them are perfect, okay, and shiny, but you also have to take into account the other part, okay? They deal with a lot of the scum of society, okay, so it's a bit expected or expectable of them not to be all sunshine and happy, okay? And yes, of course, there is injustice in the so-called justice system, but come again, it's something that is still improving, but to my opinion, the justice system is not useless, it's just lacking a lot of good sense, okay? Because the only reason that this exists is, spiritually speaking, it is still a shadow. It exists because it reminds us that we are not authentic enough. Ever wondered why we have rulers in society? It's because people are complacent. People are afraid of their own power and they are not willing to take responsibility for their own lives. And that is why you have a judicial system. Because people who cannot bypass their own traumas, they will always inflict traumas upon others. But guess what? Such people who are usually narcissists and as such usually don't face any trial because people are too ignorant to actually accuse them. And worse than that, the judicial system doesn't cover that. Emotional traumas are not covered by the justice system because, they always say, well, you cannot actually prove that. Well, you can actually prove that if you actually create the right people to be introspective enough and to know how to read other people, because reading a narcissist is not that hard. Sure, they will use different masks, they will use different tactics, but they have their own same 15 or 20 tactics, including gaslighting and all sorts of blackmails and the such, and it's easy to see those, okay? Sooner or later you will see the pattern. It comes with experience, of course, and sure, there are people who are always much better than just the simpler ones, but come again, the very simple point is the judicial system, in my opinion, is extremely faulty, and up till now, the judicial system, or most of it, still exists to serve the corporations that have spread all over the world, and, well, the world is leading itself by the example of a so-called corporatocracy. Because these large entities are usually the ones that are actually ruling the world, not the justice system. The justice system is there for the NPCs to believe in. Most people believe that, and they still expect the, society to actually save them. Up till now, people have been believing that God will save them irrespective of whatever will happen, but guess what? Peasants would believe that in the case of an invasion, God would save them from the sword of the enemy, but guess what? It never happened. And nowadays people believe that they will be saved from, whatever injustice because there is society. But guess what? No one is here and no one will ever save you from your own ignorance. Okay? That is something that you have to understand. Of course, this video can actually extend more, but, There are a lot of things to speak about, and yes, you will be taught that we humans are bad, we humans are doing whatever possible, but I can't look at most people from the judicial system included and any other authority in society as being some kind of angels. It's like no thanks. Okay, those people, many people, not all, because I'm not gonna generalize, but many people actually aren't necessarily civilized. Okay, so the point is, do not present this society as civilized. Okay, you probably have a very wrong impression about the idea of civilization. Okay, don't speak to me about civilization when you have a mass of people that wherever go they just leave their litter around. There is no such thing as respect for their close ones. There is no such thing as respect towards nature, because nature is the most important part. We may live without a society, okay, but we cannot live without nature. And that is one thing that most people would simply disregard. But again, if nature wants to destroy you as a race, it will. Okay, if society wants to destroy you, it doesn't have much to destroy, because most people are already in existence. They just act just like NPCs in the game. They have a simple coding, and they just act based on that, inhibiting themselves from the greater potential that there is. Of course, disguised in such a way are such entities that are paying some of the karmic debt of our own race, but let's leave that for another day, shall we? Hopefully this video was to your liking. I'm looking forward to providing more wisdom on different other topics. The justice system is not something that, the domain of law is not something that I'm too passionate about. Okay, as I've been saying, the only reason why you need control in life is because you actually lack it. And people who lack control over their own life will seek to control other people, and well, that may actually lead to why such systems actually exist and why societies actually exist, because well, there's technically a bunch of a few people who actually rule from the shadow, but again, they also have their own spiritual role, so don't hurry in judging. Judgment is something wrong by the root, because the point is, when you judge something, you definitely don't have a clear opinion about that. You don't have, for sure, you don't have a well-built idea upon that, and most people will simply judge you by the way you look and by the way you act. And again, don't tell me this is a fair and justice based society, okay, and a civilized one also. Okay, hopefully you like the type of content that I'm creating. Feel free to view any other videos that I have. I usually speak about spirituality and also the video game I'm working on. And well, just as usual, take care. You are loved and appreciated. Take care of your loved ones, become more introspective to find more answers and more ideas about the truths that you have come to experience in this life. Ferenc Board signing out.